The sun never truly reached the forest of Hürtgen, not in late 1944. The German High Command had lost contact with an entire platoon. 28 men vanished without a radio call, without a trace. Lieutenant Eric Halden, age 26, decorated, calm under pressure, was summoned before dawn. General Vogler slid a file across the table. "Your mission is simple," he said, voice low. "Find out what happened. Bring back survivors, if any remain." Eric opened the file. Photographs, abandoned rifles, shattered helmets, muddy boot prints suddenly ending in the soil. He swallowed hard. "This looks like a retreat gone wrong, sir." The general shook his head. "It wasn't a retreat. It was a disappearance. And you will take a squad of 6. No more." Outside, the air hung heavy with cold. Eric met his men, each hand-picked. Corporal Weber, tracker, quiet, eyes always scanning. Mueller, heavy gunner, loud but loyal. Fritz Lang, radio man, young but brave. Rudolf Steiner, medic, calm even under fire. Otto Brandt, explosives expert, nervous but sharp. Carl Beck, sniper, steady aim, sharp mind. They loaded gear in silence. As they approached the tree line, Weber muttered, "These woods, something's wrong here." Even the birds were silent. The fog pressed between the trees like a living thing, swallowing sound. 20 meters in, they found the first evidence. 2 abandoned helmets, a torn sleeve, a mess kit lying open in the mud. No footprints, no bodies, just equipment, as if the men had faded out of existence. Eric whispered, "Stay sharp. No shouting, no lights, no unnecessary noise." Weber studied the ground closely. "Sir, the tracks go forward, and then nothing." "Nothing?" The footprints just stop, as if the platoon walked into thin air. A cold shiver ran through the squad. Not fear of ghosts, fear of an enemy they didn't understand. Eric raised his rifle slightly. "Move, slow and quiet. Something happened here, and we're going to find out what." Behind them, the forest swallowed their trail instantly. The mission had begun. The deeper Lieutenant Eric Halden and his squad pushed into the Hürtgen forest. The more unnatural the silence became. No wind, no rustling branches, no hint of life. It felt like walking into a sealed world. Corporal Weber, kneeling at the ground, ran his fingers through the thick mud. "There should be fresh tracks, animals, anything," he whispered, "but it's like this forest has stopped breathing." Eric scanned the fog-filled corridor between trees, each trunk rising like a pillar of an ancient cathedral. The air carried a faint metallic smell, almost like blood. "Stay tight," Eric said softly, "weapons ready. No one wanders alone." The squad moved in a slow formation. Carl the sniper took the rear, silent, analyzing every shadow. Mueller, the heavy gunner, breathed loudly, struggling to keep his nerves steady. Rudolf the medic whispered prayers under his breath. Fritz the radio man tried every few minutes to send a signal, but received only static. Otto, the explosives expert, checked his satchel repeatedly, jumping at every sound. Fog curled around their boots like smoke from an unseen fire. They found the first real sign, a rifle leaning against a tree, perfectly upright, not dropped, not thrown, just resting, like someone placed it there gently. Eric touched the barrel, still slightly warm. "Sir," Rudolf whispered, "they were here, recently." Weber pointed at the ground. "Look, boot prints, dozens, all facing one direction, deeper into the woods." But that wasn't what made the squad freeze. The spacing of the prints was wrong. They were tight, deliberate, as if the men were marching in absolute formation, step for step, even while vanishing. "What military unit moves that cleanly in a panic?" Beck muttered. "No one," Eric replied. unless they weren't panicking. A chill ran through everyone. The forest shifted. A long, low creak echoed between the trees. Not wind, not branches, something else. Mueller spun, raising his MG-42. What was that? Eric motioned for silence. All six froze, listening. A distant thump, slow, rhythmic, like boots hitting hollow ground, but too heavy, too measured, too mechanical. It came from dead ahead. They advanced. Fog thickened until visibility shrank to 15 meters. Eric felt his heartbeat climb. Not fear, but the instinctual awareness that something unseen was watching. Weber signaled with a hand gesture. Movement. Left side. The squad crouched instantly. Through a break in the fog, something large shifted between trees. A shape too tall to be a soldier, yet walking on two legs. Beck raised his sniper rifle. "Sir, permission to—" "No shots," Eric said sharply. "Not until we know what we're firing at." But before they could get a clearer look, the shape vanished, melting into the fog like it was never there. "Maybe it was a deer," Mueller said weakly. "No deer walks like that," Weber replied. "No animal does." The battlefield remnants appeared next. As they pushed forward, the fog thinned just enough to reveal something horrific. An entire campsite, torn apart, tents ripped open, supplies scattered, a pot still hanging over a cold fire pit, the contents half-cooked, untouched for days, but no bodies, not one. "It's like they stood up and walked away mid-meal," Rudolph said. Eric examined a tin cup on the ground. The tea inside was molded over, days old, meaning the missing platoon hadn't eaten, or been found, for almost a week. Yet no decomposition smell, no blood, no signs of battle, just abandonment. Fritz shook his radio. "Still static, sir. It's like something is blocking the waves." "Not something," Otto murmured. "Somewhere." The final clue of Chapter 2 came suddenly. Weber halted and raised his fist. Everyone froze. On a small slope, half covered in leaves, they found a soldier's field journal. Name on the cover, Gefreiter Heinrich Bauer. Missing platoon. Carl opened it carefully. The last written entry read, "We are being herded. Something in this forest is directing our path. No sounds, no birds, only the footsteps behind us. They are not human." The squad looked at Eric, waiting for orders. He closed the journal with a firm snap. "We keep moving. Bauer's platoon went deeper, and whatever they followed, we're following too." Fog rolled over them like a closing curtain as they stepped forward. The forest grew darker as Lieutenant Eric Halden's squad marched on, guided only by the faint trail of footprints left by the missing platoon. But here, inside the deeper basin of the Hürtgen, the air felt heavier, like it carried the weight of every lost soldier who had ever died there. Fog slid across the ground like something alive. "Sir," Fritz whispered, "my compass is spinning again." Eric glanced down. The needle circled aimlessly, refusing to settle. "That's impossible," Otto muttered. "Not unless something is interfering with magnetic fields," Weber finished. "Which means this forest isn't natural." Carl exhaled sharply. "I knew it. Something is bending this place." Nobody disagreed. They discovered the first missing man, except only his boots remained. Half buried under a fallen branch sat a pair of German boots, standing upright, perfectly placed. Weber approached cautiously. "Sir, they're not empty," he said quietly. Eric knelt beside him. Inside the boots were socks, stuffed perfectly, as if someone took the time to remove the feet, without damaging the leather. No blood, no torn fabric, just two boots, arranged like a soldier was standing there a moment ago. Rudolph swallowed hard. "What the hell does that—" Carl cut him off. "It means whatever took the platoon didn't want their equipment. Just them." A sudden gust of cold air, unnatural in its direction, swept through the trees. "Eyes up," Eric ordered. The footsteps begin. The boys heard it first before seeing anything. Step, 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 but not theirs. Heavy, measured, slow, as though something enormous walked between the trees just out of sight. "Left flank," Mueller hissed. The squad formed a defensive semicircle, weapons raised. The sound grew louder. Step, step, step. The rhythm was too precise, like the marching cadence of a single, enormous soldier. "Hold fire," Eric murmured. "Watch the fog." Then, from the corner of their vision, a shadow flickered. Tall, broad, humanoid, but its edges were wrong, jagged, shifting, glitching like a flicker in old film. Carl steadied his sniper rifle. "I can't get a clear view. It moves like it's jumping between places." Rudolph whispered, "Sir, this is not possible. Nothing moves like that." "Nothing." Eric tightened his grip on his rifle. "Keep your discipline. The forest wants panic. Don't give it panic." The abandoned camp. The one in the photo. Finally, the squad entered a clearing. The very same campsite the missing platoon had been using before vanishing. Exactly as the journal described. Torn tents, scattered food, personal belongings tossed like toys. A mess kit lying half buried in mud. A helmet hung neatly on a branch, as though someone placed it there intentionally. And in the center, a fire pit with ashes still warm. Mueller crouched down, touching the embers. "Sir, these aren't days old." Eric froze. "What are you saying?" "They're minutes old." The squad looked around in panic. "If the fire was burning minutes ago," Fritz whispered, "then where are the soldiers who made it?" Weber pointed at the ground. "Sir, new footprints. Fresh, deep. But they didn't lead out of the camp. They formed a circle, perfectly round. Dozens of prints facing inward. Why would they stand like that?" Rudolph murmured. Carl answered grimly, "They didn't stand. They were made to stand." The sound returns. A branch snapped somewhere behind them. Everyone spun. Fog parted. For half a second, they saw something tall step behind a tree. A huge silhouette. Broad shoulders, long limbs, a helmet. But twisted into a shape no soldier could wear. Mueller shouted, "It's coming this way!" "No firing," Eric snapped. "We still don't know what it is." Weber hissed, "Sir, if it's what took the platoon—" "I said hold." The squad held their breath. Nothing moved. The forest froze again, like everything was waiting. They find the second clue. The carved tree. Otto suddenly pointed at a tree. "Sir, look." A large oak had been carved with a knife. Deep, angry cuts. 3 words. "Don't follow us." Underneath, a fresh line had been added. Longer, carved in a frenzy. "He's walking with us." Rudolph stepped back. "What does that mean? Who is he?" Before Eric could answer, something enormous groaned deep within the forest, like a massive gate dragging across the earth. The ground trembled. Fog swirled violently. Every instinct in Eric's body screamed one thing: run. But he didn't. He couldn't. He had men behind him. "Form a line," he commanded. "We move east. Stay close. Do not break formation." The squad regrouped. Each breath was shaky. Each step felt like walking toward a predator's open mouth. Behind them, the footsteps resumed. Not walking, not charging, just following. As the squad vanished into the fog, the abandoned camp behind them slowly went silent again, as though nothing had ever happened. By late afternoon, the fog had grown so thick it clung to their uniforms like wet cloth. Lieutenant Eric Halden could barely see the man walking directly ahead of him. Every tree looked the same, dead, stretched, and staring. Then, without warning, Fritz raised his hand. "Movement," he whispered. The squad froze instantly. In the distance, through milky fog, stood a single German soldier, helmet low, rifle slung, motionless, just standing, facing them, not moving an inch. Eric whispered, "Does anyone recognize him?" The squad exchanged tense glances. Otto swallowed. "He's wearing the insignia of the missing platoon. But we don't know him." Carl took out his scope, adjusting carefully. After a long pause, he muttered, "No, no, something's wrong with his face." "What do you see?" Eric asked. Carl's voice trembled. "I see nothing. No nose, no eyes, no mouth. It's just blank." The soldier tilts his head. The figure didn't walk, didn't flinch, didn't react, just stared. Then, slowly, his head tilted to the side. Too far, much too far. A sickening crack echoed through the forest. Rudolph stepped back. "Sir, that's not human." Eric lifted a hand. "Hold position. Nobody fires unless I say." The soldier's silhouette flickered, like the fog itself was glitching around him. One moment he was standing straight. The next moment his head was bent nearly to his shoulder. Then straight again, back and forth, like a broken puppet. The soldier starts walking. Wrong. The soldier took a step, but it wasn't a normal step. His leg jerked forward, stiff and unnatural, like someone moving using muscles that weren't theirs. Eric's breath grew shallow. "Mueller, call out to him." Mueller hesitated, then shouted, "Identify yourself. Name and rank." The soldier froze. Then, in a voice that sounded like three men speaking at once, "You. Fulo. S." The squad recoiled. Rudolph whispered, "Oh God, it's speaking with voices that aren't his." The soldier took another step, then another, walking straight toward them. Carl takes the shot. "Carl, prepare to fire," Eric said quietly. Carl steadied his sniper rifle, breathing slow and measured. "Sir, permission to shoot?" The figure was only 20 meters away now, still walking wrong, still shifting like a flickering image. "Not yet," Eric murmured. They waited. The fog swirled around the soldier's boots. He stepped closer, and closer, and closer. His face was still blank, just smooth skin where features should be. Finally, Eric exhaled. "Take the shot." Crack! Carl's rifle echoed across the forest. The figure staggered. Smoke drifted from Carl's barrel. "Enemy down," Carl said. Except he wasn't. The soldier fell backward. But in the next second, he was upright again, like gravity didn't apply. Otto whispered in pure horror, "Sir, I shot him in the heart, and he's still standing." Carl fired again. Crack! The bullet tore through the soldier's chest. He flickered and split, for a moment appearing in two places at once, then merged again, still walking, still coming. Rudolph screamed, "What is that thing?" Eric gritted his teeth. "Fall back, now!" The chase through the pines. The squad ran, not because they were cowards, but because no soldier, German or Allied, was trained to fight something that didn't bleed, something that didn't die, something that didn't move like a human. The fog curled around their legs as they sprinted between the trees. Behind them, step, 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 and a single distorted voice. "You. Fool. Low." Carl nearly tripped over a root. "Sir, he's gaining." "Don't stop!" Eric shouted. "Keep moving." They reached a ridge and slid down the muddy slope, tumbling over each other until they hit the bottom. Rudolph wheezed. "Did we lose him?" Weber turned back, staring into the white void of fog. Silence. Nothing. The soldier was gone. They reach the empty valley. At the base of the ridge was a small valley. Silent. Still. Windless. Weber bent over, hands on knees. "What did we just see?" Otto whispered. "That wasn't a ghost. That was something wearing a soldier's body. Eric clenched his jaw. And it wasn't alone. The journal talked about them. Plural. He looked around. The valley felt wrong. Dead wrong. We move, we regroup, and we find the rest of the missing platoon. He checked his map. Next waypoint. The old command bunker. Carl swallowed. Sir, what if the thing that's following us is already in there? Eric looked at his squad. Weapons ready. No one separates. We go together. They moved forward, unaware that the fog behind them slowly rose into a human shape again. Watching, waiting, following. The forest was silent, wrapped in a cold wind that moved through the trees like a whisper of warning. As the unit advanced deeper into enemy-controlled territory, the moonlight barely touched the ground, leaving most of the path drowned in darkness. But he walked forward with a strange calmness. Eyes alert, breaths measured, every sense sharpened like a blade. Their mission was simple on paper: locate the enemy courier, intercept, extract documents, return unseen. But missions rarely stay simple on the battlefield. A few minutes into the march, they spotted faint lantern lights flickering between the branches. His commander signaled for the unit to halt. The enemy patrol was closer than expected. Too close. One wrong step, one snapped twig, and the entire forest would explode into gunfire. He raised his rifle, body leaning slightly forward, and his breathing slowed. This wasn't just another operation. Something inside him felt different. Like the night itself was holding its breath. The patrol stopped. The enemy officer looked around, sensing something unusual. His unit froze, every soldier gripping their rifles tighter. Tension wrapped around them like a coiled snake ready to strike. Then it happened. A metallic click echoed through the trees. An enemy safety lock being released. Before anyone else could react, he fired the first shot. A clean, precise bullet that struck the officer before he could shout a warning. Chaos exploded instantly. The forest lit up with muzzle flashes as both sides exchanged fire. But he moved like a ghost, swift, controlled, deadly. Each shot he fired wasn't just accurate. It was intentional. Cover to cover, tree to tree. He kept advancing, protecting his squad from being surrounded. When the gunfire finally died, the smell of smoke and damp earth filled the air. His unit emerged, shaken but alive. On the ground beside the fallen courier's satchel, he picked up a steel case containing the documents they came for. But it was what lay next to it that changed everything. A hand-drawn map of their positions, their routes, even their camp. The enemy had been preparing an attack. His actions that night didn't only save the mission. They saved every man waiting back at base. His commander stepped forward, placed a firm hand on his shoulder, and whispered, "You didn't just complete the mission. You changed the outcome of the war tonight." And for the first time, under the pale moonlight, he realized something. This wasn't about medals or recognition anymore. It was about responsibility. Heavy, unavoidable, and earned with every breath he took on the battlefield. The next morning came quietly, with a pale sun rising behind the ridge, spreading a cold light across the camp. The men were exhausted, shoulders heavy from the night's terror. But there was something else in the air. An uneasy silence that clung to everyone like frost. Word had spread about the intercepted map. Everyone knew the attack was coming. What they didn't know was how the enemy got such accurate information. As he walked through the camp, he noticed faces filled with doubt, soldiers whispering in corners, eyes darting toward the command tents. Something felt wrong, something unspoken, something dangerous. Later that afternoon, he was summoned by his commander. Inside the tent, maps lay scattered across the table, marked with red arrows and defensive lines. His commander, usually calm and composed, looked troubled. "There's a leak," he said quietly. "Someone from inside has been feeding them our routes." The words hit like a punch to the chest. A traitor, inside their own ranks. The commander handed him a small folder. Confidential, sealed, heavy with implication. "Your job is simple. Find who it is. Quietly. No one must know we're watching." He nodded, but inside, he felt the weight of something far greater than a battlefield mission. Fighting an enemy face to face was one thing, but hunting someone who wore the same uniform, who slept under the same sky, who might even share the same rations, that was a different kind of war. He spent the next days studying patterns, who moved where, who knew which coordinates, who had access to what. The deeper he went, the darker things became. Friends he trusted suddenly looked suspicious. Soldiers he once laughed with now seemed distant, hiding something in their eyes. One night, while reviewing intercepted radio signals, he noticed a detail so small that most would have overlooked it, a timing mismatch in the patrol logs. One soldier had repeatedly switched duties without reporting the exchange. Strange, unexplainable, and dangerous. He kept his distance, watching. Then the truth revealed itself. The man pulled out a hidden transmitter, small, military grade, freshly used. There it was, the betrayal, right in front of him. He stepped out from the shadows, rifle lowered but ready, voice cold and steady. "Turn around." The traitor froze. Slowly he turned. Fear carved across his face. There were no excuses left. No lies strong enough to cover what had been done. The forest wind howled through the camp as he arrested the man, dragging him toward command. Soldiers gathered, faces twisting in shock and disbelief. His commander met his gaze and nodded. Pride and sorrow mixed together. "You saved us again," he said. "This could have destroyed the entire division." But he didn't feel victorious. Not tonight, because wars are fought with bullets, but they are also fought in the dark, against shadows wearing familiar faces. And those battles leave scars no one can see. After the traitor was exposed and removed, the camp slowly began to recover, but the atmosphere didn't return to normal. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal overnight. Every soldier walked a little more cautiously. Every whisper sounded suspicious. Every shadow looked deeper than before. Even he felt it, a quiet pressure sitting on his shoulders, reminding him that danger didn't always come from the outside. But the war wasn't slowing down. If anything, it was closing in. A week later, scouts reported strange movements near the valley, a place known for fog thick enough to drown sound. Rumors said enemy patrols were slipping through that area, creeping closer to their position, testing their defenses like wolves circling prey. That night, the fog returned. He stood guard on the outer perimeter, the silence so heavy it felt alive. No wind, no insects, not even the usual murmur of distant artillery. Just nothing. A perfect night for an ambush. He tightened his gloves, eyes scanning the tree line. The moon was barely visible, just a pale smear behind the clouds. The world looked ghostly, like the entire landscape was holding its breath. Then, a twig snapped. He froze. Not a random animal sound. This was deliberate, careful. He signaled the others silently. The men spread out, crouching low, weapons raised but movement controlled. For several minutes, all he could hear was his heartbeat thudding inside his helmet. Then the shapes appeared, dark silhouettes, slowly moving through the fog. Silent, organized, deadly. Enemy scouts. And they were getting far too close. He held his fire, waiting. Timing was everything. Too early, and the ambushers would scatter. Too late, and the enemy might slip past their defenses. The fog swirled. The figures grew clearer. Rifles slung low, steps synchronized. Almost, almost, he lifted his hand. A signal. His men tensed. Another step. One more. Then he brought his hand down. Now! The night exploded. Gunfire cracked like lightning. Muzzle flashes lit the fog in flashes of white. The enemy scrambled, confused, stumbling back into the trees. He moved like instinct. Fast, precise, every shot controlled. His men followed with discipline, creating a wall of fire that pushed back the intruders. But one scout broke through, charging straight toward him. He didn't hesitate. He tackled the man, the two rolling across the cold ground. A knife flashed. He caught the attacker's wrist and forced it down, fighting for inches in the choking fog. With a final surge of strength, he disarmed him and pinned him down, breath ragged, heartbeat hammering. The scout stared up at him, shocked and defeated. The attack collapsed soon after. The remaining scouts fled into the forest, leaving their fallen behind. His squad regrouped around him, panting, shaken but victorious. But they weren't asleep. Not anymore. The camp lit torches, reinforced the perimeter, and stood guard through the night. Dawn broke over the ruined village, painting the ruins in muted shades of gray and red. Smoke curled from smoldering debris, mixing with the morning fog, hiding dangers that could strike at any moment. He led the squad carefully, boots crunching over broken glass and splintered wood. Every alley, every shattered doorway could conceal an enemy sniper, a hidden mine, or worse, an ambush waiting for the unwary. The mission was simple but deadly. Infiltrate the heart of enemy territory, find the secret command post, and gather intelligence critical for the next push. But simplicity is a luxury few soldiers ever enjoy. As they moved forward, shadows shifted in the debris. A door creaked somewhere, just enough to make a soldier's stomach tighten. He raised a hand, signaling halt. "Stay low," he whispered, eyes open. The squad crouched behind rubble, rifles ready. The wind carried a faint murmur. Enemy voices speaking in low tones. They waited. Patience was lethal. Suddenly, a small patrol emerged from the mist, rifles slung casually. One of them stepped on a loose piece of wood, snapping it sharply. The squad froze. He counted slowly. 1, 2, 3, then fired. The patrol never saw him. Within moments, the squad neutralized the threat, moving silently, efficiently, without leaving a trace. The ruined streets seemed endless. Every corner revealed another danger. He felt it in his gut, an unnatural presence lurking, watching, waiting. As they approached the central plaza, the real danger appeared. A massive German officer, surrounded by guards, stared at them from a balcony, seemingly calm but radiating authority and lethal intent. He knew what they had to do. They couldn't engage in a frontal assault. It would be suicide. Instead, he devised a plan on the spot, using shadows, broken walls, and narrow alleys to inch closer. The squad moved as one, silent and precise. Every heartbeat matched the rhythm of the ruined city. Every step could be their last. Hours passed like minutes. Finally, they reached the building where the enemy officer and his staff kept vital intelligence. With careful precision, he led the squad through an unguarded side entrance, retrieved the documents, and silently retreated into the rubble. The city was still, almost too still, as if the buildings themselves were holding their breath. He glanced back one last time before disappearing into the mist. The mission was a success, the intelligence secured, but the cost of this operation would linger, not in the enemy losses, but in the shadows that had followed them, watching, waiting, and reminding them that the war never truly ends. The horizon burned with fire and smoke. the remnants of artillery, shells creating craters in the earth like scars on the battlefield. The men gripped their rifles tightly, hearts hammering, every breath mixed with dust and gunpowder. He surveyed the chaos, calculating, moving like a predator among his men. The enemy had fortified every approach, and one misstep could mean death for the entire squad. "Keep moving," he shouted over the roar of explosions. "Stay together. Don't break formation." The squad advanced, ducking behind fallen walls, leaping over shattered vehicles, the air thick with smoke and the screams of battle. He noticed young soldiers trembling beside him, but their trust in his leadership steadied them. The enemy fire intensified as they neared the command bunker. Bullets ricocheted, sending shards of concrete flying. He rolled across the debris, taking careful aim at a sniper perched above. One clean shot, then another. Every movement was calculated, deliberate. The squad mirrored his actions, silently communicating through gestures honed in countless drills. As they reached the bunker, he realized the enemy had set traps. Tripwires, mines, hidden explosives ready to wipe out anyone who dared enter. He knelt, carefully disarming the first device, then the second. Every second felt stretched to eternity. Then, suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the ground nearby. The squad was thrown off balance, dust and smoke filling their lungs. But he pushed forward, rallying the men, their determination unbroken. Inside the bunker, chaos reigned. Officers scrambled, papers scattered, radios crackling orders that would never reach their intended soldiers. He moved swiftly, securing vital intelligence and eliminating threats with cold precision. Finally, the squad emerged from the wreckage, battered but alive, the horizon behind them scorched and smoking. Victory had been hard won, but it came with the heavy weight of lives lost and horrors witnessed. He looked back once at the battlefield, knowing that the fight was far from over, but also understanding that tonight they had survived the impossible. The men followed him, weary but determined, as they disappeared into the fog, carrying with them the lessons of sacrifice, courage, and the stark reality of war. The first rays of sunlight broke over the horizon, casting a golden hue across the ravaged battlefield. Smoke still lingered in the air, carrying the scent of gunpowder, earth, and the unspoken weight of loss. The squad gathered on a quiet hilltop, surveying the aftermath. Craters pockmarked the landscape. Twisted metal and broken timber littered the ground. Silence hung heavy, broken only by distant groans of the wounded and the occasional whistle of wind. He stood at the forefront, shoulders heavy with the memories of what had occurred. The missions completed, the comrades lost, the enemies defeated, and the shadows they had faced within themselves. The war was far from over, but this battle had left a mark on him, the men and the land itself. They had survived impossible odds, but survival carried its own burden. Each man knew that tomorrow could bring another hell. He lowered his gaze and quietly reflected on the journey, the training, the ambushes, the betrayals, and the moments of courage that defined them. They had not only fought the enemy, they had fought fear, doubt, and their own mortality. The squad saluted the rising sun, a silent tribute to those who would never return, to the sacrifices made in the name of duty and honor. And in that moment, something unspoken passed between them, an understanding that they were more than soldiers. They were witnesses to history, custodians of courage, and survivors of a war that had reshaped their lives forever. Even as they descended into the valley below, carrying memories heavier than their packs, he knew one thing clearly. The echoes of this fight, the lessons learned, and the bravery shown would never be forgotten. For the battlefield had forged them, and though scars remain, the spirit endured. The war would rage on, but so too would their courage, their resilience, and their story, etched forever in the annals of history.